Welcome back to the book club with me, Arbiter Ian.
And me, Mira Manga.
We're getting so good at doing that.
Like we've done it before.
We do a book club. This is a book club. It is a series of YouTube videos. It's also a podcast. And the difference with this book club is that we read Warhammer books. If you would like to listen to us talk more, then you can go to the other one of those podcasts or YouTube, or we've our channels in the thing. Also, I like to talk about lore. Mira interviews the writers of these head here books. Also, we've got Patreons and we've got merch. You can buy T-shirts with our cartoon faces on.
If this is one of my T-shirts.
Hey, look,
Ian's T-shirts and hats, amazing.
In the post. They are very good, and you should buy them. Hey, what are we doing today, Mira?
Today we are doing Prospero Burns.
Yeah, Prospero Burns.
Prospero, not a person, a planet.
Well, not the person from the Tempest.
No,
a planet. So this is kind of a two-parter, right? And it was a bit weird. The book that is the other half of this was released a few years before. They were meant to come out at the same time, and this one got delayed because this is kind of the other side to A Thousand Suns.
Yes.
Yeah. So in Thousand Suns, we saw this story, or the end bit of it, from the other point of view.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of the same things. In fact, we saw Nikaea.
Story, yeah.
We saw the burning of Prospero, and this is the same point of view, but it's told from the Space Wolves' point of view. And it's kind of the Space Wolf origin story a little bit. It's not their origin story, but it's like the book that properly introduces them into the world. Before this, we'd seen them.
Yeah.
In Battle for the Abyss.
Yes.
Wolfie McWolfson and his wolf buddies.
Yeah. This is definitely very much this. You were telling me this is the book that all the Space Wolves players love.
Well, there's a weird thing. I think it's probably one of the most well-loved books of the whole series.
Yeah.
And partly I think it's because it takes the Space Wolves, who were previously a bit comedy-drunken Viking, and all their stories, which are very self-contained, were very I have to go on a saga, Viking, and makes them arguably a bit more of an adult sci-fi believable thing. Like you see their culture and go, oh, I get why this works.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people really, really like that. But there are some Space Wolf players who really like the previous thing and don't like this.
There was not as much there was no partying.
No, there's no partying.
There was no
There's some board games.
Yep. There was no raucous drinking or Viking. Well, we had Viking stuff.
Yeah, but not there's a lot of you live in a very cold climate and your culture is a bit Middle Ages Scandinavian culture.
Yeah.
But there's not very much Wolfie McViking ale. Yeah, it's not that.
I mean, I'm still confused about the whole wolf thing, so I'm looking forward to Ian explaining all of that.
Yeah, great, good. Shall we do the tea? And then you can do your action intro. So today's tea, we're going with one we've had before. This is Rose Redbush tea.
Yay.
Because we've all drank too much caffeine already today, doing all the other things that we've done. So we'll be drinking some Rose Redbush.
Oh, that smells quite nice.
Yeah, like roses and red bushes.
Wow. Thank you, Ian. So, podcast people, Ian's pouring from a really beautiful teapot.
Bush baby tea, as my partner would say.
Actually, the video people can't see your teapot either.
Oh, yeah, good point. Here's the teapot.
Sorry, podcast people. It's very pretty.
Yeah.
Cheers. Here's to not killing our brothers.
Yay!
Hey!
By the wolf time. I recognise my mistake and will be sure to correct it.
Oh, yeah, very good.
Yeah, very good.
I'm getting a tattoo of that.
Okay, great. Mira, take it away.
In a world of snow, join us as a band of bloodthirsty snow people bash the shit out of each other. Then come and be part of the Space Wolves and howl as your brothers as constructs get mushed up and we bash the shit out of them. Through the eyes of Casper Hawser, find yourself at the heart of a tribe, destined to support Leman Russ as he betrays his brother. Space Wolf secrets will be revealed. But are there wolves on Fenris?
No. Just mutant people. Anyway, right. So, we start this book on Fenris, an icy death world where all the land they live on, every so many years, what they call great years, which are very long years, it's a bit like winter is coming, right? Descend beneath the waves and new land comes up. And so they have to constantly move. All the tribes constantly move. And we meet fifth of the Ascomani tribe, and he's saved a guy called the Uplander from an attack by the Bolt tribe, who have seen the Uplander land and have gone, bad omen, the Ascomani have a bad star.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like we get a lot of like there's ice running, ships rigged to run on ice.
Yeah.
They're all cutting threads and leaving red snow behind them.
It's one of the worst opening things I've ever read in any book, let alone the Heresy. It's absolutely, completely violent.
Yeah.
I mean, there is slaying and then there is hacking people to bits. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
You have to hack them bits to get rid of the Maleficarum.
you think Dan Abnett is bad at doing a Gaunt's Ghost melee? Imagine just hacking someone with an axe.
I mean, I think I should point out that Mira means he's very, very good at doing it.
I mean,
but it's very horrific.
And then he goes in even closer. I don't want to hear how an axe catches on a flickering collarbone and then, you know, cleft in twain.
Yeah, it could have been a Jude Reed book, this.
It was so horrid.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
really, it nearly stuck me. I nearly didn't get...
Also, we should point out that because this is some tribal culture from then, they're probably, Fifth and his mates are probably young teenagers.
Yep, and they're human.
They're human, they're just people. Yeah, tribesmen of Fenris.
And the Uplander means like person from the sky.
The sky, yeah, from the uplands, yeah. He's an old man, the Uplander. They take the Uplander injured into some ice boats and they run away, but they're pursued. It turns out the Hradkana, another tribe, have joined forces with the Bolt to wipe out the Eskimani because they must have bad magic.
But they put sails up going, we're going to come and kill you. Red sails.
They dump the Uplander on the shore and turn to fight, but they're saved by a demon, which we recognise to be a space marine. It's a space wolf called Bear.
Isn't that a twist? We get they think it's a demon, but it's a space marine. Normally, it's the other way around.
And then he blows up with his box that shoots fire.
Yeah.
He kills all the tribes and then traces them away. And then, because of the blood and the hole in the ice, a Hrosvalur comes out, which is thank you, which is like some sort of giant walrus monster.
Yeah.
And he has to go and kill that then.
Yeah. Can I just say, you're so traumatised at this point. You think the Uplander's going to die.
Yeah.
And then you're like, yay, Space Marine, come save him. And then a bloody giant monster.
Giant walrus.
Oh.
So the walrus comes out.
The walrus is cool.
He takes the Uplander, and so Bear puts the Uplander and Fifth in his flying
Uplander
machine.
says, save my friend because they saved me.
Yeah, and the last thing Uplander sees is he's like, right, I'm going to take you back to the what's it called? They call their house. It's the Et.
The Et. Yes.
I'm going to take you back to the Et. That's a really good example of what I was saying earlier, because officially in Warhammer it's called the Fang.
Oh,
yeah,
like Castle Grayskull.
That's too stupid. Let's call it. Let's have the world that the rest of the Warhammer calls it the Fang, but the Space Wolves call it the Et.
Okay.
And other important thing: the Space Wolves do not call themselves the Space Wolves. That's the rest of the thing. The Space Wolves we're the Rout, or we're the people of Fenris, the Volk.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of like that. Like, yeah, we're not doing this. The last thing he does is he shoves his finger into one of his eyes.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Why did you remind me? Trauma. Everyone's dying. Massive sea creature, and then I'll take you to safety. And then it goes that was the last thing he remembered before he felt his eye being gouged out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. So the rest of the book. We have the story of Casper Hawser waking up and doing a load of Space Wolf things.
Yes.
But we also have flashbacks to Casper's backstory.
Casper Hawser is the Uplander who was saved.
Yeah. And what I've done in this notes is I've done all the Casper story, because it will get confusing otherwise, because we're jumping around a lot in this book. So, Casper Hawser. This is the story that happens to Casper Hawser, we find out. So, Casper Hawser, we find out, was raised as an orphan in some sort of great Catholic work, which is implied to be like sort of Christian religion a million years in the future. It was dedicated to building this huge city called and then it never happened. It got wiped off the map by raiders. He was originally rescued from wolves by the rector of the camp, Rector Yue, and the rector named him Casper Hawser, which is a reference. There were always stragglers at supper call. Nina used the threat of wolves to bring the laggards in. The wolves are out there. The wolves will get you. Now the moon's up, she'd call from the back door of the kitchen. And he's always been scared of wolves. Casper Hawser is a reference to like a sort of thing that might have happened, folktale of like a kid that was found that might have been a hoax in like, I think the 17th century, 18th century, in Germany, I think Austria or something, found with a toy rocking horse, and said he didn't have any background or know where he was from. So it's a mysterious family.
Yeah. Which we pointed out earlier, was also in Blade Runner 2049.
Here's where the Blade Runner horse comes from, your rocking horse comes from, yeah. So, At some point, he becomes a sort of roving Indiana Jones-like historian archaeologist. And he's in charge of an organisation called the Conservatory, which is funded by the Council of Terror. And it's dedicated to recording the knowledge saved from Old Night. And finding out why Old Night happened.
And if you ever wanted to read a Warhammer book that's about council funding and how to apply for a grant,
this is a lot of that in this. Yeah,
this is the one.
There's a scene where he's talking to one of his founders, and he's like, "Answer me this: does anyone know why the Age of Strife happened? How did we end up in the great darkness of Old Night to begin with?" So his mission for the Conservatory is to make sure that if Old Night happens again, we don't lose everything.
Yeah.
Record what
the data.
we have.
Yeah.
At some point, he and his colleague, who also seems to be like an early founding member of the Conservatory, Navid Mirza, were researching ancient Egyptian stuff ahead of an army action. A lot of their missions are like, the army's going in, get this before we destroy everything.
Yeah.
They're studying in this ancient Egyptian temple the Eye of Horus, or Eyes of Aversion in general, which Mirza's really into.
Yeah. And eyes of aversion are generally used like the evil eye. So if magic or bad things are being cast, you put the eye down. And that comes up as like a tool for banishing warpy stuff.
Yes, in loads of mythologies through human history. And while they're doing it, though, the Thousand Sons turn up and are like, right, you've all got to go.
Yeah.
Too dangerous. Lads. Yeah. And the Thousand Sons are interested in his name. Like, Mirza's really... And they're like, Casper Hawser, is that a joke? When he says his name. And he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's a joke. At one point in their whole thing, we cut back to later on. They're in Lutetia, which I think might be Paris.
Oh, okay.
There's like a big old, there's like a Notre Dame thing, but it might not be. But I think they're in Paris or somewhere.
Somewhere European city. I was
it seems European city-ish.
Yeah.
At one point, due to a reckless deal by Mirza, they are cheated by a gang in Lutetia. And Mirza just about gets them out of it. The way he gets them out of it, and they're being almost going to die, is he uses a magic word.
I was so excited when this happened because I knew it was Enuncia, which we read about in Eisenhorn.
And it's really, they're all really worried. He has a little bit of a Casino Royale, Eva Green in the shower moment with less finger sucking. And anyway, that's a whole thing in that James Bond movie. Really weird. Anyway, he has a Eva Green in the shower moment, and Casper's like, "You tell me what the fuck that was."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I wanted to let you in on this for ages, but I'm actually part of this secret society, and that's why I joined the Conservatory." And he takes Hawser to a spooky library where some ghostly robe people try to induct Hawser into their cult, revealing that they wanted him all along and Mirza was just how they were going to get to him. He escapes and rescues Mirza. But
that felt very warpy as well.
It was really and it's like before, like it's mid Great Crusade. It's way before any heresy stuff. A ritual conducted on a cross point representing the unity of approaching directions. 8 adepts offering a mission to 1 novitiate. Identities amassed representing the mysteries awaiting beyond initiation. This is a variation on the initiation rites of the witch cults of the Age of Strife. Which one? The Noah sect, the Illuminated, the Cogniti, who are the bad guys that Ravana and Eisenhorn fight.
Wow.
Anyway.
Nice reference, Dan Abnett. We appreciate.
Later still, he's in a war zone, in a recently conquered war zone, and he flirts with a soldier called Vasily, who has a nephew called Isaac, who she sends all her wages back to. And while they're doing their patrol, they investigate an old man playing a clavier piano, which turns out to be a bomb, and the bomb kills Vasily and Mirza.
Yeah.
Much later, when they're older, the Conservatives forced to become part of the Administratum. Dr. Hawser, who is now an old man, is assisted by Isaac Vasily.
Aww.
Yeah, which is nice. And he quits when he tries to impress on the administrator, Slisson, that we don't even know what we don't know. And Slisson's like, well, it doesn't matter, does it? And he's like, well, fuck you.
Yeah, he's like, you're stopping my research.
And everyone's like, isn't this good? You're being folded into the Administratum. And he's like, no, I'm going to lose my control.
Yeah.
And you don't care about our mission.
Yeah.
So he then spends a bit of time on an orbital plate, Lemuria, above Earth, floating above Earth, where he has this recurring memory of this, where he's standing looking out of a window, surrounded by all these items he's picked up through his life, a toy clavier, a music box, a little rocking horse. And someone's behind him, but he can't tell who, and every time he turns around, it stops. Then, for some reason, he decides to go to Fenris to study the 6th Legion. And he's like, right, I've had enough of being an administrator. I'm going to go back in the field. I'm really old. I'm going to go study the 6th Legion, which obviously is weird because he's always been scared of wolves.
Yeah.
And he names himself Ahmad ibn Rusta.
Yeah, I didn't understand why he did that at all.
That's also a reference. And it's a reference to... Ahmad ibn Rusta was a ancient historian, early Muslim scholar, I think, who... explored the world, and he spent time with the Kievan Rus, who are Vikings.
Ah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, anyway, yeah.
Love it.
So he requests loads of times to go to Fenris to study the Space Wolves, and he gets no response. Eventually, he just goes,
Yeah.
turns up, finally gets a response that he can go down, and gets shot out of the sky accidentally by Bear. Which is why Bear has been told he must go and fix this.
Yeah.
Go and get the Uplander.
Yeah, that confused me a bit because I was thinking Fenris would be full of like space marine houses and conclaves,
No.
but there are no space marines
So
on the planet.
The fortress, their massive fortress,
Yeah.
the Fang, the Et, is at the pole in the one bit of land that doesn't disappear
And
beneath the
humans
Eiffel
probably
Zone.
can't get there.
They've fortified it, and it's like very difficult
Oh,
to.
okay.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So that's Casper Hawser's life story up to the point where we start the book.
Yeah.
And we find it out throughout the book. He wakes up on a medical gurney, but now he's young and he's strong and he's got a magic eye, and it's like 90 years later, and he can magically speak the 2 Space Wolf languages, Juvik, which is their normal language, and Worgen, which is their war language. But no one knows why he can speak this, because they were like, well, we didn't teach
Have we
you.
got a war language?
I don't think we do.
No, maybe we'll develop one.
We'll develop one, yeah. He's been rebuilt from scratch and then frozen, and the voices he's been hearing for so long are the Space Wolf dreadnoughts kept on ice down in the bottom of this fortress.
I thought that was so lovely, sad that the dreadnoughts are down there with him.
Cormac Dodd.
Just pop the dreadnoughts down in the basement. They'll be fine. We'll wheel them
in the
out.
fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he runs away. He's like, what the... When he first wakes up, he's like, what the hell's going on? And he discovers all this as he's running. Like, why can I run so fast? Why am I so fit? Why am I taller?
Why can I Terminator eye?
Yeah, one of his eyes is like a wolf eye that sees in the dark, but has really bad detail or something. He runs before having all this explained to him, basically, by our pal, Lottie Scarson, and Othir Weirdmake, before being killed by Ahriman in the previous book.
Oh, bloody Othir.
Yeah.
But listen, if I got woken up by a dreadnought, I would freaking run.
Yeah, and there's like all the human attendants are dressed in this like leather jumpsuits with hideous skull hats on.
If you had to be,
you're like, "Ah!"
if you had to be woken up by someone in the Heresy, who would you want? Who would you want to wake you up? I was going to say
someone we've met so far.
I was going to say Fulgrim before he had a demon up him.
Oh, really?
Wakey, wakey.
Becca Kinska with some nice music.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, good.
But this is why we get into Warhammer.
I know, right? He runs it, so that all happens. He meets those. Also, Fifth has now become a Space Marine. He's called Godsmote.
Yeah.
Right. You're speaking Yuvik back to me, don't you? Scarcy said. The Uplander hesitated. He swallowed. I couldn't speak Yuvik yesterday, he confessed. That's what a good night's sleep will do for you, said Scarcy.
There's a lot of fun, like little turns of phrase and one-liners and things. And one of the biggest reveals is kind of like a joke.
Stupid joke. Yeah. There's an awful lot of this, like they're slightly taking the piss out of him. And there's also like an undercurrent of, and we're not going to tell you what really happened.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, can you suddenly speak? You couldn't do that yesterday. Well, that good night, it must be a good night's sleep. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
He's taken to Tra, which is Third Company. Scarson is the Lord of Fifth.
Thank you for saying Tra, because I wondered why they called it that.
Third Company, which is Bear's company. He's their responsibility because they shot him down. Ogvi Helmshot is the Jarl of Tra, and he's been told, right, you're going to be our Skjald.
Easy for you to
and
say.
he's like, they don't tell him what that means. They're like, you're the Skjald, learn to be a Skjald. You're not allowed any recording devices other than memory, which is why his eye was replaced.
Yes, because we find out that he had a little camera.
Into the eye to record, Yeah, it was an electronic eye. Take it. He at some point he goes down. They travel through the air because it's very tall by like jumping into chasms and using the wind to blow them up.
That sounded so cool.
And at one point he's cold, and Biter Burkor gives him a pelt.
Yeah.
And he's like, take it, a gift from Biter Burkor to Ahmad ibn Rusta. Is this some kind of compact, the Uplander asked warily. He didn't want to accidentally become beholden to a wolf Astartes on top of everything else. Burkor's shitting his head. No, not anything with blood mixed in. Maybe when you tell my account, you'll remember this kindness and make it part of the story. When I tell you account. And Burkar nodded. Yeah, you will, because you will. When you tell it, you'll make me look good sharing the pelt with you, and you'll make Var look like a selfish hog for not.
Very good.
And you're like, that's how they operate.
Yes.
You're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and you're going to make me sound really good. Yeah. When you tell our story.
All their stories must be told. They don't want recordings. They don't want any video. Their history is told from person to person, which fits in really well. Because Casper, that was his job. Like, he's a remembrancer.
So he's got to remember all this stuff. And particularly he has to remember stories about the warriors when they do their action. So when they die, he can then tell their story afterwards.
Yeah.
They go to war against the Olambic Quietude, which is another bunch of robot people.
I'd never heard of these before.
No, they're just there to get killed. They're like the Interex and all that lot.
Yeah. They were Terrans from many, many years ago, but improved themselves so much they're mostly construct now.
Yeah.
And in fact, when actual Terrans came to say, oh, hi, we're here, and they were like, well, we've done all these tests and you're 91% away from what we believe humans were. Yeah. Because they'd gone so far the other way.
Yeah.
And this is quite a good example of how they fight. Yeah.
So they attack a space station, a graving dock it's called, which they don't know what it's for, but it's in orbit. And as they're attacking it, they like climb down all the things with Rusta like clambering to the back of one of them.
Yeah. There's a lot of him being carried around by them, isn't there?
Yeah. At one point, Bear is making marks of aversion, little simple diamonds that look like eyes with a small axe, which he makes in doors and corridors to warn people.
Yeah, which did you
Don't
notice?
Go down here.
Did you notice in the book we get those?
Oh yeah, you get them as little
eyes of aversion. You probably can't see, but yeah, it's so
it's
lovely.
The chapter marker, the breaks. Yeah. There's other things to do. At some point, they ritually dismember the robot people to stop any Maleficarum, to scare it away.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
And they do it quite horribly. The more horribly you kill someone, the less likely the warp is to come back. Which is why all the killing is so gross, I believe.
Yeah. And you're scaring away the Maleficarum.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is presented as his tale afterwards. It's like him telling the tale of the action after the event. So that we find out how they work, basically, how horrible they are. Right, so they take the graving dock.
Yeah, they're successful in smashing the enemies.
Casper's then taken by Bear down to the ground, to the Imperial Army forces on the ground, the Imperial Army seems to have been trying to defeat the Olambics for ages, and the Space Wolves have been given command. They ceded command to the Space Wolves. So Ogvai's there. He's taken over command of the war. He meets this G9K officer, who describes how the army see the wolves. So he goes for like a drink with this officer.
Yeah.
And he's like telling them about the wolves, fighting alongside the wolves. He's like, the worst of them all are the space wolves required Kareen. It's a guy called
Why
Kareen.
did they call him Corn, do you think?
Kareen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, that's my eyesight, everyone. So
they were animals, Great Terror. They were animals, those things that fought with us. When you have sympathy with the enemy, you know you have the wrong kind of allies. They killed everything and destroyed everything, and worst of all, they took great relish in the apocalypse they brought down upon their foe. There was nothing admirable about them, nothing rousing. They just left a sick taste in the mouth, as if by calling on their help, we'd somehow demeaned ourselves in an effort to win.
Oh. But I mean, I'm with Kareen because they're horrible. They're so violent.
And there is this whole thing that even though in the Space Wolves they're all quite jokey, a lot of the Imperium think of them as horrific barbarians that you call in to do the worst jobs.
Yeah. I mean, I feel I get now, I kind of understand why Dan made the beginning of the book so horrific. So you kind of understand this mindset the Space Wolves are.
And they've got this sort of like black humour about it. They're sort of kind of jokey and light-hearted about their horrific job.
Yeah.
So the Quietude cities are all underground, protected by these artificially extended ice caps. Ogvai's solution is to use the graving dock as a missile and degrade its orbit until it crashes into the city. It later turns out that the graving dock was a repository of all the knowledge of the Alembic Quietude, saved so that if the planet died, this space station could get away. The wolves are like, we don't care.
Why would they? Why would they want to know everything that they'd learned?
We saw this in Thousand Suns,
Yeah.
when they were trying to kill the library, because they said they'd destroy the city, and the Thousand Suns was like, yeah, but not all this knowledge we're meant to capture. They're like, we don't care, destroy the city.
It's just maddening.
Yeah. So in the aftermath, so the dock crashes into the cities, makes a big old hole, and the aftermath, Hawser goes in with the wolves.
Yeah.
Total carnage.
Weird shit ensues.
He can go where he wants, he realises.
Yeah.
No one told him. He can go where he wants, and the wolves will all keep him safe. But he keeps almost dying.
Yeah.
Constantly, he's almost killed.
He is quite the liability.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone watched that awful film with John Travolta, Battleship Earth
Yeah.
or something. But in that, John Travolta's really big and then a little man. So I was imagining like little man running around, But he's quite vulnerable.
He ends up keeping a guy called Heroth Longfang, who is like a librarian. Yeah, he's from Terra. He's one of the oldest space wolves, and he keeps in company as he dies. And he tells them that story about the book
He was
priests.
in one of the first Space Wolves legions, wasn't he?
And he tells them the story about the book priests and Navid Mirza to scare him, because they like spooky stories, and the only thing that scares them is stories about spooky things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like feeling scared, and the only thing that can scare them is Maleficarum.
At which point the guy says, that's not the scariest story.
Yeah.
You could tell me. Longfang says, you've had more brushes with Malice. How do we say it?
Maleficarum.
Maleficarum.
Yeah. He's like, no, you've had, that's, also he's like, why did you let your friend live? He's Maleficarum.
Yes. It's like Longfang is kind of got like sage wisdom and can see.
It was not the same, Hawser replied, but something wanted you to think it was. Something wanted you to think that the 6th Legion Astartes have manipulated you and intervened in your life at some point in the past. Something wanted you to mistrust and make us enemies.
Oh.
What could do that, he asked. Who could do that? Hellwinter shrugged, as though he didn't care. Perhaps it was whoever made sure you could speak Yuvik and Worgen from the moment you arrived on Fenris. So Hell sees this story, and at the same time he sort of gets into the mind of Hawser and watches it, and he's like, something's got in your mind before, and it's that's got in your mind that told you to come here.
Yeah.
And that's why you can speak our languages.
So we know, or we're worrying, does Casper have a demon up him?
Does he have a demon up him? We don't know. But anyway, he dies.
Longfang dies.
Longfang dies. Next stop.
That was really sad. I love that section.
It's good, isn't it? Also, very good thing. In 40k...
Let's do more tea.
In 40k, old space wolves, their teeth keep growing. So old space wolves, it turns out, all have these long fangs, and they're called long fangs.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's obviously after Heroth Longfang, who is the oldest space wolf in the Heresy.
So nice.
Yeah. So, next stop, Nikaea.
Nikaea.
We've seen it before, right?
Crazy. Oh my God. So we've seen Nikaea before. This is back behind the scenes access.
Yeah.
Entertainment tonight.
Because we saw the trial, and what we see is the backup.
Yeah, and there's all these people under the arena is like, these volcanic caves carved out. You've got a bunch of space wolves waiting for things to kick off.
Well, you've got loads of people. You've got Leman Russ,
Primarch,
Valdor. Fulgrim, Typhon, that's Mortarian's mate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's Mortarian's first captain. Ralderon, who is Sanguinius' first captain. Plus Skarsen and Lord On of Gunnar Gunhill. Lord Gun of On, Gunnar Gunhill, who's the first captain of the Space Wolves. He's the leader of the first company. They're all there, and they're in a secret base underground, and there's loads of silent sisters, so Magnus doesn't know they're there.
Yeah, so clever. Really clever.
He gets taken to the place called the Quiet Room, which is a room full of silent sisters, so no one can tell what's in it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was like, Space Marines have a quiet room?
No.
Oh, that kind of quiet room.
And he meets Leman Russ.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when he goes into the Quiet Room, he suddenly can't speak Yuvik anymore.
Yeah. So they know.
Yeah.
They kind of reveal to him.
You're a spy.
You've got something up you.
We think you've been sent by the Thousand Suns to infiltrate the wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and then this is like, Casper's like, oh, what? I
didn't mean to.
Who put me here? And Casper, you can see, feels very loyal to the Space Wolves, wants to be one of them.
Everyone, including Valdor and Amon Taramakian, who's the guy from Blood Games. Yeah, he's there too. they all know this. They all know the story, and they say the conservatory was actually really, really powerful and probably could have resisted administratum oversight. And if that happened, Hawser would become very comfortable and powerful. So evidently he was activated before the handlers lost their chance.
Yeah.
When Hawser had this brief crisis, the activators were like, now, make him run away.
Yeah. I mean, we see that time and time again. They wait till someone is at their very lowest and then they swoop in with warpy promises and lies.
Yeah, the moment you came in here, sir, Russ said, mocking Hawser's use of the honorific, the scramble you gut sisters blocked whoever was playing with your head. I'd be very interested to know who was handling you. Handling? My dear Ahmad ibn Ruster, wake up and see where you are. You're a spy, a pawn in a very long game.
Now, I love that they mention the pawn in this because Casper keeps going back to this dream again and again and again. Yeah. And there's a little chessboard in the dream.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And I think towards the end of the game, it says, you know, Hawser noticed that the game was close to a checkmate.
Yeah.
And so the game is progressing. It's a game within a game.
Which is a thing that happens more. There's a whole chess thing later in the Heresy, in the books as well.
Ooh.
But yeah. Ammon, the custodian, takes him up to the roof to watch the trial. But it turns out it's actually Ammon from the Thousand Sons, who is a first captain of the Thousand Sons and leader of their spooky secret infiltrators. And he reveals that it was the Thousand Sons using him as an early warning system. We guided you to our pathway, the warrior replied. Hidden ones are more obliging if they're not bent against their will, even unconsciously. So you freely admit I'm an asset. Curious, is it not? We know you're our spy, and so do the wolves. One might be tempted to presume you're useless. But the wolves have this weird thing where Russ is like, I want you to see me coming. This
I wanted to pull up the wolves on this, because the wolves say, we know our enemies, we strategize. The difference with our legion is we will do everything to your face. There's no kind of backstabbing. So if you want to spy on me, I'm here. You can spy on me. I'm spying right back. But that is BS, because they sent bloody what's his name, their word maker, as a secret spy
to make friends with Arma. Yeah.
So that is all bullshit. All Sorry about that, Lehman Russ. You're a liar. Sorry, carry on.
Bear and Orn Hellwinter, who's like another rune priest, a librarian, save him. And Bear makes a mark of aversion with a little axe onto Ammon, who melts like he's in Wicked. I thought that was
so clever. He made the thing on his armour.
Yeah, and he just melts.
Yeah, like Wicked. Yeah,
like Wicked. Yeah, good. Very, very apposite.
Yeah.
Later on, Hellwinter and Hawser, helped by a guy called Ida Halfwolf, who's also a librarian.
Yeah.
Try and find out who's behind this memory he keeps having on Lemuria, trying to find out exactly what the deal is. But it turns out there's like a door in Hawser's mind. and Hell and Ida Halfwolf actually accidentally goes through it.
What do we learn about doors with the wall behind them?
Yeah.
Don't go through them.
He goes through it and he gets turned into a horrific wolf monster. When interrogated later, Ida says he saw Horus and this dagger, the anatheme, but because Ida is now tainted by the warp, no one believes what he's saying, and Ogvi shoots him. Because he's like, sorry, mate, you're Maleficarum. We can't believe a word you say.
Which made me feel like, well, hang on a second. Longfang's already told our hero, Casper, that he's Maleficarum, but they haven't killed him, even though, anyway.
Magnus then does something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, they kind of explain it really, really clearly, which was like...
Magnus forces his way through to give the warning. Magnus forces his way into the throne room.
Yeah.
Leading to complete destruction of the Emperor's Webway project.
Yeah.
And thousands of demons waiting to go in. And the message is delivered, and the Emperor's like, you fucking idiot.
Yeah. So basically,
or the message is lost, I think.
The way Lehman Russ describes it is that we went to Nikaea, you were there, Magnus was told, stop fucking about with the warp. He, in his like ego, he came and showed his dad, I'm still using it. And Casper says what we're thinking. Well, hang on, he was trying to warn his dad.
Yeah.
And then Lehman Russ goes, no, it's his arrogance that made him continue to do it, and also messed up the Emperor's plans.
Yeah. And there's this whole thing of like, the Space Force position is, as soon as something's warpy, you can't trust what it says anyway.
Yeah.
So how do you know that it isn't? Is this a real plot, or is it just Magnus trying to invent something
that
to
made
prove that his sorcery is useful?
That made me really sad. It was like a double betrayal because, not betrayal, but Magnus was trying so hard, and then you realise even if his message had got through, they may not...
Ross wouldn't have believed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The,
Russ tries to talk to Magnus. He summons Hawser and he's like trying to talk to Magnus through Hawser. But it doesn't work. Hawser brings up that Ida said the same thing as Magnus.
Yes.
That Horus is the danger. But
Then Lee
goes,
it's just
no,
Magnus, she was tainted.
Yeah, can't do that. Ida half was tainted. So we go to the next setup, which is the burning of Prospero. Casper goes in again. It's his first, he's now been combat training.
Yeah.
He's quite good at combat. He's got an axe and a pistol, and he kills a soldier. His first kill. There's lots of fighting. There's a lot of smashing up of pyramids. While fighting in a temple,
There's a lot of smashing up of pyramids. That's all that happens.
That's all that happens. While he's fighting in a temple, he suddenly finds himself in the room from his dream where a chaos entity pretending to be Horus appears. And Hawser realises that it's the being from the dream, the thing that was behind him. It confesses. This thing then confesses that it manipulated him into going to Fenris and framed the Thousand Suns for it by appearing as Ammon in Nikaea while the real Ammon was elsewhere, which is all part of this bigger plan to turn the two legions against each other. So it's not the Thousand Suns controlling Mirza, it's something else that got into his brain.
And Casper can't even remember where he was born or anything. So was he a maid of the warp?
Hawser uses the enunciar word Merzanu to save himself. Then his pals arrive. The Chaos guy can overpower Orn and Fifth, but because he knows their secret names.
Yes,
but whenever he says bear, he can't.
This is really clever.
Really
There's
clever.
two clever things. One clever thing is, I'll do the first one. In order to be the Skjald, Casper had to learn everybody's name and tell all their stories. So the people that were in his mind knew all of the Space Wolves' names. So that was really clever.
Yeah, and there's this whole thing through this where knowing something's true name gives you power. Over it.
Yeah.
The clever thing is that whatever gave him the knowledge of Yuvik and Worgen, for some reason it doesn't translate animals. And there's all the way through, he keeps saying things like, and then a crow was there, and everyone's like, what was that word you just used?
Yeah.
And he's like, a crow, the black flapping thing. He's like, you mean a flub?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you just say that?
Yeah. But Bear saved Upperlander when he was like an old man on the ice. And do you want to say the reveal?
Yeah, so Bear's name is not Bear, it's Bjorn. But because he can't translate animals properly, he just knows him as Bear.
And also, everyone's like, well, why wouldn't Bjorn just say, my name's Bjorn? But Bear is kind of taciturn. He doesn't speak much through the whole book.
So he just accepted it.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, you always call him Bear. We don't know why.
But because of that beautiful failing, the warp creature can't get Bear and take control of him, and Bear saves the day.
Yeah. And then dreadnoughts come in and shoot it to death.
Yay, they get the dreadnoughts out.
Yeah, Cormac Dodd appears.
We're here, boys.
So that's the thing. Russ, then at the end of it, Russ is like, well, mate, you're a bit dangerous, aren't you? We're just going to put you back on ice forever. Yeah. And he goes back into the ice.
Do you know what?
And that's it.
If I have to go, just put me on ice.
Put me on ice forever.
Forever.
That's Prospero Burns. First, for all their horrificness, it's actually quite a funny book. There's some great moments.
It's a great book. There's some really great writing. There's the usual Dan. We were saying this is very like Legion. There's so many layers. There's tricks. There's traps. There's wordplay. There's beautiful descriptions. Yeah. It's very, 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 very good book.
There's like some weird casual... There's some brilliant dialogue. The dialogue... I've got some quotes I just liked, right? I don't mean war so much. It's like, what are you for? You're for war. I don't mean war so much, said Ogvi doubtfully. We're just an elaboration and codification of a much purer activity, which is being alive. Sometimes at the most basic level, to be alive, you must stop other people being alive. That's what we do. We're extremely good at it.
That's very good. And I think that captures that very dry, Scandi sense of humour.
Yeah, it's got that whole black, dark, Yeah. Fenris, Skjald, the questions never end. Well, there's always something else to know, said the Uplander. There's always more to know, not true. There is such a thing as too much, which is a very Fenris thing. You're like, don't look. If you know, we'll have to kill you.
Yeah. And also, it is true. The more you know, it turns out it's the warp, and then you're tainted.
Yeah. And the last one which I really liked, which is like the logic thing, is like when he finds out that he's allowed to go and record these missions, he's like, oh, so I can go anywhere. I can choose what I see. Yeah. Why did no one think to tell me that? Hal Hawser asked. Did you think to ask? Replied the beast. This is the logic of the Volca Femrica, Hawser said. Yeah, catches in your flesh like a fish hook, doesn't it? Replied the beast. You're like,
No.
yeah, you didn't bother asking. Well, I didn't tell you.
I mean, you see a lot. I mean, Dan's writing is absolutely dancing off the page. Very lucky, as always, to have such great authors.
Yeah. So it's quite a funny book. I think quite a good look. I quite enjoyed the look at all the pre-Unity stuff, all the like
Yes!
conservatory
I know.
exploration, Indiana Jones and around.
I do have a wish that someone somewhere will compile all the pre-unification stuff
Mm.
together. It's really meaty, and you get to hear more about the Magnus situation through what the Emperor told Lehman Russ. Loads of good juicy stuff. And Fulgrim's here.
Yeah,
Get a little bit of Fulgrim.
Yeah. So my one criticism is the payoff at the end is just too much. Like, I had to actually look up to figure out, and I reread it for this.
Yeah.
And I was still at the end going, so what happened? It's not actually, the whole thing is that it's the Thousand Sons he met in that pyramid a million years ago. And then it turns out it's not. It's actually Chaos trying to make it look like the Thousand Sons. So they understand. And I'm like, it would have just made sense if it was the Thousand Sons.
But it wouldn't be a Dan Abnett story.
I thought that was genuinely, I got to the end and I was like, was that what happened?
But
And I had to go and look it up.
But I prefer it because I don't like that brothers are pitched against brothers. I would like to think it was chaos.
I think like the Thousand Sons being so obsessed with knowledge, having a spy in the Space Wolves is perfectly reasonably in there. It's exactly what they do.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, the question about this
And it
book...
would give you a reason why you're a bit less trustworthy of the Thousand Sons. You
Yeah.
are a bit like, the whole thing is to have the Thousand Sons think the Space Wolves are bad. Then in the Space Wolves book, you assume the Thousand Sons
Yeah.
are bad. Then at the end of the Space Wolves book, they're like, no, the Thousand Sons were great all along, actually.
But you could also say, you're supposed to think the Space Wolves, blah, 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 hate them,
Yeah.
etc. And then the guy, the bad chaos creature goes, I've been manipulating all of you. This is perfect. This is going to set everything up. You're all screwed. But the question was, do we like this? This took me so long to read.
Why?
Because it was absolutely the gratuitous goriness at the beginning. And I was really, really scared and put off. And then when we got into the Space Wolves thing, I thought it's all going to be very blokey and too much, just fighting, killing. But Dan being Dan found those moments with like Longfang and the flashbacks. And yeah, I ended up loving it. But it took me a long time to get into.
Also, Space Wolves.
New Legion alert.
New Legion alert, Space Wolves. We get the full, this is the Space Wolves book. We now know the Space Wolves.
I mean,
They don't really come back much.
I like them more than I did. I don't think I play them. They seem there's humour, but it's very dry. It seems cold. There's a lot of ice and snow. I don't think I found my Legion yet.
Okay, all right. One question here, because we foolishly put this in the same thread as the first Heretic questions, and those were all the questions.
Okay, I have a question for you after this.
Okay,
as
fine.
well.
All right. This is Adam. It's for me. What are your thoughts about the bit at the end where Bjorn survives the fight and says something like, "Good thing I didn't end up in a dreadnought. I'd hate that." Funny, Easter egg, or a bit cringe. I like all those things. In the very first book, there's a great line where they're fighting the 6319 people, and Loken looks out and sees the Abaddon and his just staring warriors who are all dressed in black fighting, and he's like, I looked out and saw Abaddon, the first captain, commanding his just staring. They were like some other Black Legion. And I'm like, and I like all that thing. So I think this is great. Yeah, Bjorn ends up dreadnoughted. So in 40, he's still alive in 40k, but he's only defrosted once a millennium to tell stories around the fire of Liman Russ, because he's the only Space Wolf alive in a dreadnought who still knew Liman Russ.
Oh, I like that.
And so Bjorn the Fell-Handed, he gets his hand chopped off at the end, remember? So he loses his hand. Yeah, he's like, whoa, I got my hand chopped off, but whoa, good job I didn't end up dreadnoughted. That would be annoying.
See, Adam, this is not cringe. This is absolutely perfect, because I had no idea, but you can see how much it tickled Ian, and it tickled me when I learned that. So let's keep that up. It pays homage to all the fans and the people that care about the franchise. So yeah, more of that, please.
What was your question?
I still don't understand that I know wolves on Fenris.
Okay.
Why is it a
It's
thing?
all a bit mysterious.
Wait. Are the Space Wolves ever werewolfy?
Yes.
Why don't they say that in this
It's
book?
very secret. No one knows.
Even us.
The Space Wolves are werewolves. There's something in there. There's something in
Okay,
there.
wait. I'm going to take my tea and explain this.
There's something
Ian's
in
doing
their
the lore.
specific gene seed called the canis helix, which is why it's why it's very hard to make space wolves. The people of Fenris are like genetically primed to accept it. And because Fenris in the past was some sort of like, in the Dark Age of technology, Fenris was some sort of like wintry theme park of like, oh look, we've made the worst planet ever.
Wow.
Deliberately. And there's evidence they were primed to be these like the most hardy people ever.
I got you.
And when the Imperium found this, they were like, right, so you can take this we've been trying out this super special gene seed that actually kills lots of people, but you can all take it. It's called the Canis Helix. It makes them have extra good senses. That's why they're so good at hearing and seeing and all this stuff. But it does, if it goes wrong, sometimes turn you into a wolf.
Okay.
And so the argument is that the wolves are in fact failed Space Marines applicants. Like in the trials of becoming a space wolf, if you fail, if it doesn't go genetically well, you end up getting wolfed.
But then there are wolves on Fenris.
Well, they're not really wolves.
They're Space Marines.
They're Space Marines that failed the trials.
If you're having a fight and you're a space wolf and you're on a 40k table, I don't know, 6x8, can you say, do you have like, I'm going to use my...
Yeah.
And you can turn into a wolf?
No, right. So in 30k, this is all a bit early on, they can bring wolf buddies, so they can have wolves accompany them. And they were in Thousand Sons, was a load of wolves accompanying
wolf buddies.
And they were always like the wolves. The wolves in Thousand Sons. The Thousand Sons were all looking at them, going, "That wolf seems too intelligent." And they're like, "Yeah, because it's a space wolf."
Are they like Twilight-sized werewolves?
Yeah, they're huge.
Okay.
And then what they find out, I think, near the end of the Heresy, or they've always known it, that there's some space wolves later on have gene seed corruption, which will turn them into actual werewolves, like half man, half wolf.
Okay.
And called the Wolfen. And that becomes a thing through 40k as well, that anytime they're a bit too close to chaos, they might get wolfed.
And that's cool if you're playing them? Or
it's a thing you can do if you're playing Space Wolves, not in Heresy, but in 40k. So yeah, that's the Wolf on Fenris thing.
Okay.
It's like, there are no wolves on Fenris. And the Space Wolves are like, of course there are, look, wolves.
So how would you
wolves.
ever know?
It's like hinted at through a bazillion books.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Yay!
Done. Right, so,
Prospero
bastard scale. Here's my bastard scale. Am on the wizard secret demon.
I felt he was... Are we talking about the actual demon at the end where he turned into Horus?
I'm talking about Ammon the wizard, who was like, Mwahaha! I'm secretly 1,000 Sun and I have tricked you. And then gets vanquished.
I'm going to give him... I think he's the pantomime.
Okay.
Two on the bastard scale.
The 1,000 Suns as an organisation.
0.
Navid Mirza.
I mean, what is that man all about?
Yeah.
He went off and joined a cult.
Yeah, then he joined the conservatory to get shit for his cult.
He did save the life of Casper, though, with Enuncia.
Yeah, although potentially he also introduced him to the Cognitai who put the demon in.
I'm not going to give Navid...
No bastard scale for Navid. No bastards. Okay, because
he's like the brother in the Mummy Return. The Mummy, you know.
Okay, all right, okay. He's like, okay.
James Nesbitt
in the Mummy,
okay.
Yeah. And then finally, Dan Abnett for his convoluted plot.
How dare you! Get out! I'm leaving!
Where's he on the bastard scale? Put Dan on the bastard scale. Sit down and put Dan on the bastard scale. That plot twist had no need to be there. Would have been better if it was the 1,000 Suns. Would have made a lot more sense.
I like the plot twist. What would you say if you want it on there?
0.5 on the bastard scale.
No, 0.0005.
Okay.
I'm not putting him on the bastard scale officially.
He's on the bastard scale for that plot.
Ian did that.
That plot is going on the bastard scale.
I'm sure Dan will be a bastard for loads of other stuff we haven't even found out.
Yeah, wait till you get to End of the Death. Anyone else? Any other bastards in this? There's not really. I mean, there's a demon at the end, but he's not there for that long, and demon's in a demon.
I didn't think there were any other bastards. I mean, I think Lehman Russ, not a fan.
No?
Didn't find him very charismatic as a leader.
Yeah.
But no. Yeah, I don't feel the anger and my hackles rising of a big bastard.
There's no word bears in this.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, there we go. That was Prospero Burns. We have done a Prospero Burns episode.
Yay.
It has burnt. We've seen it from both sides.
The next book in the Heresy is...
Age of Darkness?
Maybe.
I think it's the collection. It might be I think it's Age of Darkness, then the Outcast Dead.
Okay.
so we will do a short story collection.
Which means I'm doing
which
the
means you're doing the
summaries.
notes.
Sorry, everybody.
Cool. So that'll be the next one we do.
Yeah. I have to say, please check out Ian's merch website,
yeah.
which looks really lovely and professional. And you've chosen interesting colours. You've chosen yellow, which is Iron
Warriors.
Iron Warriors.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
did you choose that?
Because the original thing I was doing when I started the channel was Necromunda stuff, which is very hazard stripey as well. Yeah, very arbitey.
There you go.
Yeah, I might thinking of some sort of T-shirt that has "I've got a demon up me"
I
written on
think
it.
you need to.
I think that's a good one. Yeah. Anyway, maybe we'll do that. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
And if you'd like to show your allegiance, you can check out the merch store. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel in other ways, there's links to that below, as well as links to the YouTube membership scheme and the Patreon. On both of those, you can get early access videos and a load of other perks too. See ya.